Whenever watching a movie, you're most often introduced to the element of suspense to keep you, as the viewer, involved and interested of what will happen next. Suspense is essentially the viewer's knowledge in the scene, as well as the absence of it.
In order to get suspense, you provide the audience with a certain amount of information and leave the rest of it to their own imagining.
It is arguably the crucial quality of a good film, and there are many ways to create it.
Oh God, it's moving right towards you.
The aim of this video is to review a particular byproduct of suspense, namely intensity.
I will find you, and I will kill you.
However, it is not the intensity we're commonly presented with, which typically consists of action or rage.
Lay your palm flat on that tabletop!
The kind of intensity which produced the sometimes disturbing or curious moments in cinema, which is occasionally able of reminding the audience of their own atmosphere.
3 Gläser.
What is so evocative about this intensity is its reminiscence of reality. Something we rarely expect or look for in movies. This is discrete intensity. In order to put into perspective, let's have a look at a few examples. Batman's first encounter with Bane in The Dark Knight Rises takes on an alarming tone as we see the hero defeated by the villain. The most distinctive part of this scene is that there is no music. We can only hear the hero's pain and grunting. This theme is what makes Melish's death versus the German soldier in Saving Private Ryan so harrowing. It stands out by portraying the battle as dismal and brutal, to remind us that combat is by no means pretty. It's not often to see this type of suspense used in horror movies, but the 2016 horror production Hush takes on a different approach to this scare. Hush introduces us to Maddie, a deaf rider who lives alone out in the woods. The conflict emerges as an unknown killer arrives to Maddie's house and attacks her friend Sarah, right outside Maddie's door. As Sarah is being massacred, screaming for help, Maddie misses the entire event due to her hearing impairment. The killer quickly realizes that Maddie can't hear him. He sneaks into her house and has the opportunity to kill her. But he doesn't. Instead, he takes Maddie's cell phone. The viewer grows more aware of the present danger, of which the protagonist has no knowledge of.
What was that?
We also do not understand the killer, or their motives.
Behind you. I thought I saw something move.
The director is creating suspense. Maddie only first realizes the danger when the killer sends live images of her. Hush shows an eerie aspect of stalking from the victim's perspective, and how horrifying the reality of it is. Then the killer reveals himself. The killer has Maddie trapped in her own house. Then he cuts off the electricity. Making her unable to call for help. The discrete intensity becomes apparent as hunter and prey closely exchanges looks. A Quiet Place utilizes the scaring elements in a similar way of Hush. It follows the narrative of the Abbott family, who are living in silence because they're hunted by sound-sensitive creatures that dominate the land. They use body language and walks on trails of sand to stay quiet, for any noise is fatal. An astounding moment in this film is particularly when Evelyn Abbott steps on a nail her way down the stairs. The scene has been accoladed as one of the scariest moments in horror movies by some, because even though A Quiet Place is a horror movie, it uses suspense to scare. The viewer was presented to the nail from a previous scene. We were only waiting for someone to step on it. Even though Evelyn manages to stay relatively quiet, the monsters are already alerted by the shattered glass. The viewer knows that danger is inevitably on its way. The suspense is perfect. And after a brief moment, much accordingly, Evelyn spots the monster. The discrete intensity takes shape as Evelyn hides by the stairs. It becomes as quiet as cinema gets. Note that the camera isn't moving here, which is emphasizing the importance for the viewer to listen. Neither Evelyn or the audience can tell what will happen, and it is the obliviousness that makes the scene so intense. Both the previous examples produced the discrete intensity quite clearly. They used it to scare. A bit straightforward. It's not hard to miss it. So let's take a look on other scenes, using suspense and discrete intensity in a bit more imaginative and interesting way. In Quentin Tarantino's Inglourious Basterds opening scene, the Nazi Colonel Hans Landa approaches a small French family on a search for hiding Jews. As the scene develops,
Really sure.
the audience is required to be observative of the suspense.
That should do it.
For crucial bits of information are being revealed. The viewer gains knowledge of what is at stake. What is left to wonder is if Hans Landa knows.
May I smoke my pipe as well?
Please, go and make yourself at home.
The detective pulls out his pipe. It's an orchestration of discrete intensity, culminating at this moment of Hans Landa's stern look.
You're sheltering enemies of the state, are you not?
The villain finds out.
Yes.
Point out to me the areas where they're hiding.
It's the part of reality where sometimes evil prevails. Suspense truly is key for discrete intensity.
Sorry,
As you may have noticed from the previous clips, sound is an equally important factor for the theme as well. Discrete intensity is usually quiet, with little to no soundtrack. It diminishes the notion of that we're watching a movie, for life has no soundtrack, and few movies do it better than No Country for Old Men. In this film, the protagonist Llewellyn Moss finds a satchel full of drug money. It is revealed that Llewellyn is hunted by a relentless hitman, who is looking for the money. A character we learn is dangerous. The most prominent scene in this movie is at the hotel when Lewin finds a tracking device hidden with the money. Then he hears a noise the viewer have heard before. When Lewin calls the reception, the telephone emptily echoes back through the corridors. Discrete Intensity is not only about impressing the audience with what is on film. It connects with the viewer by showing palpable imitations of life, situations we would normally dread, but the characters experience for us. For unlike Lewin, we, as the viewer, know what is coming.